Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about specifically the chances and risks of Firefish for the borrower. So Firefish is a peer-to-peer credit platform backed by Bitcoin, which connects investors which want to invest in credits or in loans with a relatively high interest rate, and borrowers which want to use Bitcoin as a collateral to get access to these loans. And the biggest chances for the borrower is that he doesn't have to sell his Bitcoin. Imagine there is a big invoice coming and you are all in Bitcoin. And a lot of Bitcoiners, they are all in Bitcoin. They keep their whole money in Bitcoin. And if they would sell their Bitcoin, it could even be a taxable event that would be negative, and they would have sold their Bitcoin. So a lot of Bitcoiners prefer to use Bitcoin as a collateral on Firefish to get access to credit, cover the invoice, and after the loan duration, they just pay the credit back through the money which they have earned during the loan duration, or with a new credit which they got on Firefish to cover the old credit, just to roll over the credit so that your credit sum is staying steady, but you still didn't have to sell your Bitcoin to pay the credit back. Or the third option is, of course, they could also do after the time of the credit, they could sell their Bitcoin and then pay the credit back and get Bitcoin out as a collateral. So the biggest chances is that you don't necessarily have to sell your Bitcoin to get access to fiat money to cover expenses, and that can also potentially have good tax implication because you don't necessarily trigger a tax event in most jurisdictions. Of course, I'm not a tax lawyer, so please do your own research, but from a logical perspective, if you don't sell your Bitcoin and only use it as a collateral, there should be no taxable event, but please check in your jurisdiction. And another thing which a lot of people do, they use Bitcoin as a collateral to get a loan, and then they use the money from the loan to buy even more Bitcoin, and then they are kind of leveraged. And please be careful with that, but and don't be greedy and do it with your whole Bitcoin stack. Most Bitcoiners, which are conservative, do that only with a really small percentage of their portfolio, and the goal is to accumulate more Bitcoin. And if after the loan period the Bitcoin appreciated more than the interest and the cost of the Firefish credit, then they made a profit, and they can also do then the thing that they roll it over and getting a new loan and paying back the old loan. And you need less and less collateral during time if Bitcoin appreciates in value, that's for sure. And that are the main chances for the Bitcoiner why they use it. Another chance or another reason why they use Firefish is the bureaucracy. If you want to get a loan from the bank, you have to often if you are a private person, your money which you get from your work, so you have to have some kind of proof that you have a stable income. And if you're an entrepreneur, it's even more complicated. Often you have to submit like profit and loss statement, cash flow statements, and all sorts of documents, and you have to fill in a lot of stuff, and that can be time consuming. So Firefish is no bureaucracy, you just have to follow the process, and the credit is secured by your Bitcoin. And so there's no additional proof of your solvency needed. So even if your credit rating is really bad, you can get access to credit through Firefish because your collateral is Bitcoin and you don't need anything else. So to summarize, the chances are you don't have to get through a bureaucratic process to get a loan from a bank. You can get credit even if your credit rating is bad. You can credit even if you have a really volatile income, and banks normally don't like that, and it's difficult to get a credit from the bank. And you don't have to necessarily sell your Bitcoin, create a taxable event if you use Firefish, and just borrow against your Bitcoin. That are like the most advantages which a lot of Bitcoiners see. And now there comes the risks. One risk is privacy. You have to register for Firefish and submit your ID and some personal information. It's like registering for a bank account or for a crypto platform, and Firefish has just to comply with the KYC rules, and so there you lose part of your privacy, and a lot of Bitcoiner don't like that. And you should, if you want to optimize your privacy, then Firefish is nothing for you, because they have to comply with the laws. We don't like them necessarily. I also don't like them, but I understand why Firefish has to comply with them. And the next thing is also the person which lent you money. He has now your name and he knows you own Bitcoin. That's also loss of your privacy, and you should also take that into account. And yes, that's the privacy implications. The next thing is also, do you have a platform risk? So you have to trust Firefish that they don't do something wrong in the process, for some even malicious or not malicious, but for because of some mistakes in general in their process. It could be that they send your Bitcoin the wrong way. So the good thing is they can't steal your Bitcoin. So Firefish doesn't have access to your Bitcoin. That's a really good thing. So they cannot run away with your collateral. Your collateral is stored in a multi-sig escrow, and there are two ways out: either to you back as a borrower, or to the investor. If you don't pay back your loan, then the Bitcoin is sent to the investor, because he is then just made whole, and he doesn't have like a credit default or a loan default. So the risk is you have to trust Firefish that if you pay back your loan, that they press the right back button and you get your collateral back. And of course it could be that's the Oracle problem, that Firefish sends nevertheless the Bitcoin to the investor, and that would be bad for you. But so far that has never happened, and it's only a theoretical risk. And Firefish is a platform, and the more customers the platform get, the more money makes Firefish. So they have a strong incentive to do the right thing and execute the credit transactions properly. And but still that's a risk. So it's not trust free like Bitcoin. Firefish tries to be trust minimized. And meanwhile, Firefish is also open source, so you can check the code and prove and take a look if what Firefish aims to do, if they do it really. So the next risk is that in case that Firefish disappears completely, what happens? And here the risk is more on the investor side, because you as a borrower, of course, you should still pay back your money, but your collateral is definitely not lost. 1 month after the credit is over, you have like a transaction where you can recover your collateral. So Firefish or nobody else can has access to this, to your collateral. You can claim it back, but you have to download the recovery transaction. So please do that. If you do the process, you can see it. You can see it and you can download it. Watch therefore my video with the full platform review 2025. There I show it how to do it. And yes, so even if Firefish disappears, you don't have like a risk, because you can claim back your collateral. And then the next risk is like you have kind of a a legal risk, because what happens and when Firefish goes bankrupt, it could be theoretically that your Bitcoin as a collateral is part of the insolvency mass, and that could implicate some legal risks, and you have to take that just into account. Normally, the contract is so created to minimize this legal risk, but nobody can really say that there is no like minimal legal risk, because we are here in a very new legal field. So there's not a lot of experience in that in that area. So that is something which you have also to take into account, and I think there will be it will be never completely eliminated, but you have just to live with it. And if this minimal legal risk is too high for you, then Firefish is nothing for you. And yeah, so now we come to the biggest risk. I think the biggest risk is that you are getting liquidated when the Bitcoin price drops. When the Bitcoin price drops, you are getting liquidated when the credit value plus 5% is reached. So Firefish works like that. Your Bitcoin collateral has always or should always cover the credit value, so principal plus interest, plus a 5% fine for the liquidation costs. So if the Bitcoin price drops sharply, it can be that you are going to be liquidated. So you have to put on more collateral to avoid these risks. So therefore, it's really important that you use the platform conservatively. And if you see that you are going into risk, that you are getting liquidated, you have to put in more collateral as Bitcoin, and that's always possible. And yeah, you should definitely do that to not get liquidated. And I think a very practical risk is that sometimes people, they just forget that they had a credit and don't pay it back, and then they get liquidated, or they get too greedy and even can't pay back the loan because they don't have the money, and then they get also liquidated. So I think from the user experience, greed is a risk factor. And of course, you have to put in a Bitcoin address where your Bitcoin is sent back when you pay back the loan, and that has to be a good address or the right address, and you should not have any mistakes in it, or or some kind of that. So that should be like your address which you have control over, and that there's a risk that you maybe make a mistake or something like that. But that's in every Bitcoin transaction. So to summarize, the chances are you don't have to sell your Bitcoin. That's a good news. And the risks are you have to have some kind of, negative privacy implications. You have to trust the platform to a certain degree, and it's not trust free, it's just trust minimized, to summarize it. And you have to live with some rest risk of the platform. And that was the chances and the risks for the borrower on Firefish. I hope you enjoyed to watch this video. If you want to support my educational work, just use the link to register on Firefish in the description, and there's also my affiliate code, and that would be really supportive of my work. That's no financial advice, I'm just an educator, and I wish you a nice day. See you.